Hi, folks. It's Ben Callahan from The Question and from the Redwoods community. And we just wrapped up episode 61 of The Question, our deep dive. And so I have Natalya here with me, who is the co host for this week. Natalya, thanks for being here.
Well,
I appreciate you making some time. I know we just wrapped, so it's like a lot to do this all in one day. But I thought it could be fun while it's fresh in our minds, just to sort of like chat for a few minutes about the big takeaways that we had. So I'll read the questions that we asked folks, and then we can kind of just jump in. So we asked three questions. The first was, what is one new skill that you've had to learn because of a change in tooling? The next was, what's one new skill you expect your consumers to learn in order to use your design system well? And then the last one was, what's a skill that you hope to not need in the future because of the disruption of AI? And we sent this out to 980 folks. We got 46 responses, and I'll make sure I drop a link to the raw data for anybody who's seeing this. Natalya, what was your big takeaway? Like what stuck out to you about this conversation?
I love that just like the responses that came in, the 46 responses, uh, everything was dominated about what's AI doing? How's it impacting us? We're still kind of trying to congeal all of the things into a pattern. And I loved seeing a whole group of people whose daily job is just finding and spotting patterns across time and space, all kind of be like, I'm seeing this. Yeah, I'm seeing this. Well, some stuff's changing, some stuff's not. Some is hype, some is not. And it's just really great to hear literally from the global kind of collective of design system practitioners about what we're seeing.
Yeah. I picked up on the same thing, of course, because you read through the data and you're like, AI is everywhere, right? So I did some tallies on this just to see. And so out of the 46 answers, there were 65 times throughout all of those answers that were AI related. So 31 of those were in the first question, which was, what's a new skill you think you need to learn? Makes a ton of sense. 15 times it was in the question number two, which is, what do we want our consumers to be learning? And then 19 times it was mentioned in the third question, but that was, what's a skill you hope to not need? And it turns out that a lot of folks mention it because they see it as a way that will sort of alleviate their need for other things. So only 3 or 4 of those indicated that the respondent hoped to not have to use AI in the future. So largely it was an expectation that AI would help us to sort of unlearn a few things maybe that we're tired of doing. So interesting data points there. You started this off actually with this idea of discernment. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit about that in terms of why was that a comment that you wanted to sort of like bring to the minds of our attendees in the very beginning?
I think everyone is guilty of looking through the world through a lens that's deeply personal, and mine is always going to somehow come back to education. And so, in tech for a while, we got really, really good at getting faster. You learn more, the next framework, the next thing. It felt like a pretty linear progression, almost like maybe sometimes you're like this framework or that framework. A lot of little dichotomies we hear, like this or that, SaaS or less. That was even mentioned in the chat earlier. But now the landscape is, 360. You look this way, that way. Everyone's going a million miles a minute, and for your global audience, a million kilometers a minute, in every direction. And you're like, I only have 24 hours in a day. And then a lot of folks have a lot of other responsibilities in their lives, like family, just life stuff. And the discernment of, what do I put my time, focus, and energy into to make sure that whatever's disrupted next, I'm gonna know where I stand, what I'm doing, and I'm able to bring value back into my life. And I know, kind of like some validation that I know what I'm learning is going to come back to me. And I think that's the discernment now. Is like, choose your own adventure, but wow, there are a lot of adventures out there to choose from.
It's so true. It does feel like, I mean, I don't want to sound trite, but I literally, like, every day there's something new that's just like multiple things many times in one day that I feel like I'm sort of guilted into going and learning, and so I find myself at the end of a day with multiple tabs open in a browser. Like, these are things I need to go read. These are things I need to go figure out. These are new tools. These are new approaches, and so it can be exhausting, honestly. And one of the things I think that's been valuable for me in sort of helping with that discernment is having a community of people who actually are sort of on the same journey and trying to learn the right things at the right times too. And like having friends that are learning certain things, sometimes then I can, a conversation in Slack or Discord, I can say like, what do we know about this? Like, is this worth me digging into? So I think building community is really a big part of this. Ironically, right? Like we're talking about AI in a lot of these cases, and what we're saying is we need each other to sort of help figure this out. Do you agree with that?
I fully agree. None of us were like, humans aren't supposed to do stuff alone. That's why we have so many different strengths. And, there's someone who loves spreadsheets and someone who can't be bothered. Put them on the team together, you'll find you get a really good coverage. And the person that's like, you help each other and we make it work. And I feel like design systems folks, we've been building community because it's been too big for a long time. It's been too complex. The bridging of two worlds, design and engineering. We've been in that role of kind of converging people for so long that now we're leaning into that community again. It's like there is too much to learn. It's not just accelerating, it's diverging. So the landscape is growing. So we lean on these connections we've created. And I think it's something that I hope other industries and other places do as well, is have these communities that either we're growing now or we're continuing to grow, to lean on, because humans are not meant to do this alone. So that's one way. Yeah, leaning
Yeah.
into our humanity is like a thing that's going to happen because of all these technological advancements.
Yeah, I love that the robots are pushing us towards each other in some ways. um, we kind of dove into this idea at the beginning of the conversation around the necessary skill sets for systems practitioners, design system practitioners. So what can you sort of summarize at least your takeaway from that part of our conversation?
There's been a flip. Nobody's defending soft skills anymore. They're saying, hey, hope you've been investing in these all along because they're real important now. They've been important all along,
Yeah,
but I don't think it's a debate anymore. Communication, if you can't communicate with a human, you probably are having trouble prompting an AI.
that's right.
It's the ability to articulate ideas clearly, the ability to handle ambiguity. There were just a lot of different things we heard from folks where it's just like, yeah, these skills are these deeply human soft skills that were not perhaps valued previously as much as like can you write a regular expression perfectly with
Yeah.
syntax, whiteboard something. There's been that flip, and that was very interesting to see reflected everywhere.
Yeah, Davey kind of brought that out right away, saying soft skills, and then his example was empathy.
Mhm.
And so he was calling out that he sees systems folks who are on the design side leaning into engineering, and he sees the engineers leaning into design, and I think he was sort of celebrating that, like that's been really valuable for him in his career, and that started this avalanche of conversation around, yes, we need to have soft skills. And I think at one point Cam said more than half the job of a design system practitioner is soft skills, and Guy jumped in and said, no, 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 it's 100%. Like literally, if we don't have that, the harder skills of like, maybe being really good in Figma or in code, right? Those very tactical things, those don't matter if we haven't done the soft skill work before them. So I thought that was a really nice kind of like layering of the description of what we need in practitioners in our space. So good stuff. What else? Let's see. So the conversation kind of eventually I actually loved this statement that Chris made. He had a couple fun kind of quotes. He said, I think of AI as a really good tanker, but not a good lifeboat. And he said, it'll get you someplace, but it doesn't, you better know how to swim. Right. And so I think he was trying to say, like, there's a level of fluency or skill that you need in a craft to be able to use the current iterations of AI in a way that's valuable. And you have to be able to sort of get yourself out of the trouble that it puts you in too. Is that something you've experienced?
I think I put it in the handle ambiguity.
Mm,
AI is always going to give you an answer, and it's going to sound really like, at least right now at the time of this recording,
yeah.
But I think for me, the way that I've seen it play out is your human judgment, your taste, and again, discernment. That's what got you in the game. That's going to be the differentiator, and especially when the barrier to contribution, the barrier to entry, the barrier to creation is not skill based, but now these tools are making it so accessible.
Yeah.
That will be the like business differentiator where if you better know what's good. You better develop those ability to discern like what what choice to make or which way to steer this rowboat, I guess. I don't want to keep the
Yeah.
nautical metaphor, but um yeah, I think that's why a lot of why I had this question in general is like everyone is absolutely correct to be talking about AI and the new technology. It's exciting, it's big, it's shiny, but don't forget to turn your eye back on yourself and what
Mm.
is changing within you, what changes what you value, changes what you get good at, what you stop being good at, what you like, what skills you let atrophy. Don't forget to swim.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a good point. As we kind of continued the conversation around AI, Kelly rose her hand, and she kind of went on a soapbox for a little while, just like really sort of like challenging us as a community around kind of the hype and the magic of AI. And so, yeah, do you want to try to summarize kind of what she was saying?
Um, it was so great to see the engagement in the chat. I was watching the chat the whole time, and really, what I took away from her statement was just that like we've been here before. There's always been some exciting thing, and there are people making decisions that maybe we don't trust them to make those decisions. She articulated it very nicely that like, I'm hearing this happen, and there are like is the cascade of consequences as a result. Where it could have been just one junior developer for an hour doing a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that frustration is deeply relatable for design system folks where a lot of times we see a lot of excitement around us, big new shiny thing. Why don't you just do blah? It's like we move in at a different pace layer.
Yeah.
We are the steady, stable, trusted alignment machine that's always thinking about everybody's needs. We would love to go with a big shiny right now, but we need to validate. We have a pilot's checklist. We're not crashing this plane with everybody on board. We're the rigor and the standards and the quality. So the way I can say it basically is this. I get this vibe a lot. Like I understand the frustration. And I wonder if it means that increasingly design system teams are going to be champions of innovation, but also guardians of quality. Because right now, somebody can grab a tool and be wrong real fast at
Mm-mm.
scale. And
Yeah.
what guardrails do we have in place? What what systems do we have in place? That's all to be determined. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of it is it's an interesting the way she said is a confusion, magic, bullets, hype, and it's going to be up to us to be like, all right, this is good. We'll bottle this magic. This, no, that didn't work.
Yeah.
We'll just put a junior dev on it for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the balance of, sort of like innovation and standardization, speed and quality, like those are like things that I think we as systems practitioners are constantly trying to figure out how to balance. And when you introduce something like AI with the promises, the hype that it comes with, it's almost like it calls into question the need for balance in those things. And I think you made a statement in this session that really resonated with me. You said we as systems people are uniquely prepared to be the ones to kind of rise above that, right? To be the ones standing up and saying, "Hey, hold on a second, is this tool really what we need for this specific problem? And how do we spend the right amount of time doing those kinds of evaluations in places where it's probably warranted? And also balancing that out with a recognition that there is a need for quality, for slowing down sometimes so that we can go fast. So I really appreciated that perspective you brought. Um,
I love giving people the ability to innovate and run as fast as they can. And just be like, I have my ecosystem to tend to. Go experiment, innovate, and once you find something magic, let's bottle it, let's
yeah,
save it, let's make an amazing thing. But it's got to pass my checklist of quality and rigor because that's a non-negotiable for me. And so it's like, great if it does, fantastic. I
yeah.
think this isn't almost just like we've done this before, and it's exciting. We're like, we're ready. Like, let's go.
Yeah. You actually called this out, and I think if I heard you correctly, you said that, so we're both speaking at Converge in
Yeah.
Bristol in a month, I think. It's coming up quick.
Oof.
But, I believe that you said that the subject or the topic of your talk, has to do with this idea of that there has been disruption in the past, and we've seen time and again that that is sort of addressed by a certain part of the population. Can you give us just like a blurb without spoiling too much?
Yes. Okay. So, as an art major, as someone who loves going outside of the domain of tech, and just being curious about all sorts of things, um, art and technology have only been a recent separation. For most of history, technology and art have been just hand in hand. And every time historians have looked at moments of great technological progress in human history, they found that a lot of times the creatives, the artists, they are the ones who have developed the skills, the habits, and the things that are needed to thread this technology in a meaningful way into our lives. And so, what does that mean? It might mean that it's up to us right now, and we can't look around like, who's going to do it? Who's going to thread this new technology through our lives? Like, it's us. It's
Hmm.
probably us, and this is it. We're the best ones to do it. So it's an example, a little bit of like history, a little psychology, and a little bit of the art world. And it's a call to action to say, actually, we're so well prepared in so many ways, and there's a lot to be optimistic about. Like, yes, it's a time of major change, but we've been here before, and if not us, then who? Because
Yeah.
we're as vulnerable to this change as we are uniquely positioned to lead.
What a great point. I am so excited to see this presentation. I'm gonna be taking notes. So, thanks for sharing a little blurb for us. So many other cool points were brought up, and we kinda shifted away from AI for a brief time, the last, like, maybe quarter of the conversation, and we ended up talking a bit about some of the more tactical kinda tooling challenges that folks are facing. We had, stories of, how we as systems folks are spending so much time thinking about, the architecture of tokens or, variables in Figma or modes. And, we need the rest of the organization to kind of come around to those concepts too. And so, the question one being something we need to be better at, question two being something we want our consumers to grow in. We definitely saw a lot of people expressing that we want our consumers to get better at the systems kinds of things, which, it's kind of an interesting idea, right? Like it's our job in one sense to sort of be the people leading these efforts, but it's also really hard to make an impact if the rest of the org doesn't sort of come on that journey with us. So, do you have a response to that? Like, is that something you're feeling or dealing with in your daily work?
I feel like I'm very lucky that one of the random classes I accidentally got to in college, just because I wanted to learn some graphic design and the art department had not caught up yet, I had to, if I wanted to learn Photoshop, I had to take a journalism class. And I'm so glad I did because it was where I realized, like, everything is storytelling. How people learn is through stories. How we get buy-in on a product is storytelling. Every single thing that is so deeply human is storytelling. So for me, it's like, yeah, we're gonna be teaching through stories, through good storytelling. How do we get people on board? It's storytelling again, and sharing a mental model and sharing our work. So I think in general, like, I put this hot take at the end, was like, we're all teachers now until the end of time. Whether we're teaching folks who are early career and they've vibe coded their way into not knowing why something works, guess we're teaching that. Or we're teaching an organization of like, actually, this is an incredible amount of value. Keep investing here. Teaching and storytelling again. So I feel like you name it, storytelling and
Yeah.
teaching.
Yeah, it's so important. And I mean, that was a theme for sure that we need to be better teachers. Like we need to sort of see that as part of our jobs. And that's funny because this comes up in almost every episode of the question, where no matter what it is we're talking about, we're always we're systems thinkers, so we're always thinking about how that plays out in the larger organization, right? And oftentimes, I think we have sort of a repeating debate, which is how much of training other teams is our job, especially on things where it's like, okay, we're talking about just being able to use the features of the design tool and love, like, why is that our job? And I think there is a tendency sometimes to sort of pull away from that. And it was encouraging. This conversation was encouraging because to me, it felt like we kind of found some alignment as a community that, hey, this has to be a part of our job. We have to sort of embrace that. We have to find ways to do that, that sort of meet our consumers where they are, So appreciated that about the conversation. There was one thing that we didn't have time to get to that I am just gonna sort of spring on you, Natalia, I hope that's all right.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
yeah, there were, quite a few folks, who mentioned this idea of we have to sort of acknowledge the emotional side of systems work, and, I have a lot of friends in the system space who are have recently or are on the verge of feeling very kind of overloaded, very burned out. And it's interesting because I don't sense it as much in non-system roles. And I don't know, I'm not quite sure what the root of that is. I know that we did an entire session. Lauren Lepret came and co-hosted not too long ago where we talked about managing your system brain, right? This idea that like everywhere we look, we see the patterns, we see the implications of decisions, and not everybody's wired that way. So I'm sure that's a part of it. But I just kind of wanted to open that topic up with you just for a moment to see, is that something that you see in the space as well? And how are you dealing with that as a systems person?
Not to put you on the spot, but I heard it on this very podcast with you today where you say you open up a lot of tabs and you're guilted into learning. That stuck out immediately, was like, as soon as you're in that spiral of, "I should," you've lost the curiosity, and now you have the time pressure and like, it's a very slippery slope straight to burnout because instead of, "I'm curious and I wanna learn," you're like, "If I don't learn, then bad things will happen to me." So, it's almost like we also need to know the mental acrobatics to uncoil our brains when we are constantly thinking about everybody's needs, everybody's worries, the entire ecosystem, the stability of our system. That's a lot to take on, and almost just like if we sit all day, we need to do physical activity after work to undo 8 hours of sitting and hunching over. The same thing we need to do, just have that fitness for our brains to play, waste our time, divergent thinking, be curious again, and remember that we are the ones who are, curating the thoughts and patterns that we kinda literally grow our neurons around that. So, um I'm a huge fan of conversations about also just the sustainable work, not burning out, holding your own ruler about what skills you value and you don't, because you're the one who grows that career, and the ability to own your time. I am a very time scarce person, like, I can't even express. I have almost no free time, and that's a lot of the passion for design systems too, is like, I cannot solve things with time. I do not have it. I have to solve it with cleverness, and that includes, when I'm overwhelmed, having tools and systems as well, and those are also things that, I'm very grateful that I, have the background in education and psychology, because if I had to just invent this and try to tackle it alone without these resources, I'd be overwhelmed right now. So I think for anybody listening who feels the overwhelm, there are a lot of places outside of tech that have been thinking through this question for a long time, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this way. I can't say every problem can be solved at once, but there are well-worn paths in education and psychology to help people manage a large amount of information and complexity and overwhelm and make incremental progress and cultivate that kind of like above average learning that doesn't lead to burnout.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It's good. I think it's a topic we don't talk about enough in our space. So it's nice to hear that you're thinking about that too in your life. There
And it's okay
are,
to close those tabs. I just gotta say it now.
I
I'm
know.
gonna interrupt. Like, it's okay to close those
Yeah,
tabs. There'll be more tabs tomorrow.
that's
Pace
right.
yourselves. It's fine.
It's so true. Natalia, all of your info to kind of get connected with you is in that FigJam file, which is linked wherever you're watching this recap. And so I just wanted to say thanks for your time. It means a lot to me. I know you said your time's scarce, so it means a lot that you took so much to kind of share with the community. There's also a ton of things happening. Just to kind of very quickly hit on these, Redwoods is open. If you're interested in design system community, finding a smaller group of folks who really care about the space and about each other, that might be something that would be a good fit for you. You can check out the values we have there and consider that. Um, we ran the Redwoods Quarterly, which was our first ever community-driven event, and we are sharing the Fig Jam file from that event, so you can get access to all the presentations and all that stuff. Converge is coming up, as we were mentioning. That's happening in just a month, and that will be in Bristol. The day before the event, for folks who come who are connected to the question of redwoods, you got to let me know, because we found that there's a small stand of redwood trees just outside of Bristol. And so Natalya and I and a bunch of our friends and other folks from the systems community are going to be having lunch. PennPod has agreed to buy us lunch, and then we're going to find a ride out to these trees and hike a little ways to see them and spend some time kind of there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So would love to have you join us for that. PennPod Fest is coming up in just 2 weeks. Going to be a lot of fun in Madrid if you're in that part of the world. Value UX is coming next week. I just released a podcast with another friend of mine. My company, Sparkbox, is running an unconference on the past, present, and future of systems. That's free to attend, so you can get access to that. The Zero Height Design System Awards are live now, so you can go vote. And so many folks from our community are represented in those voting options. So congrats to all the folks who made that happen. Guy's podcast, Design Downtime, is live. Season 4 is coming of that. And all kinds of other fun articles and things that are happening in the space. So it's really, really a fun time to be in systems. And I love sort of, getting this bigger view of like what all is happening in the space right now. Natalya, you're amazing. I love your energy. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your time and your heart with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for leading this community. What a
Yeah,
great discussion.
it's a lot of fun. Cheers.